Hello, Duck Hunt, and welcome to a very special ign-uk podcast because we're recording in front of a live audience in a brewery.
Hang on, that was too. I'm just looking at the waveform over there. It's too loud. You have to do it again.
At the Glasgow Film Festival. My name is Chris Tilley, and this week I am joined by Daniel Krupa.
Hello.
And Gav Murphy.
Hello.
Dan and Gav.
Why do you get a bigger cheer?
Get used to it, mate. Just get used to it.
Because he's better than you. So we're in Glasgow, fellas.
Yeah, it's all right, isn't it? Like, Scottish people are really nice.
Yeah, you've all been very...
disbelief in his voice.
No, not disbelief, but I never met this many Scottish people in one place before. I thought maybe they're like weaponising against us or something. I don't know why. I'm Welsh, I'm all right. It's you lot they hate.
Do you hate us? That's quite a mixed
room. It's a mixed room.
That's why I got the bigger cheer. Celt, they can smell it.
Is this the first time in Glasgow for either of you fellas?
Both, yeah, I've never been here.
Yes.
Before.
I've only ever been to Scotland once. I went to the Isle of Arran.
And?
Fans of islands and Arran. I was telling our guest what I did on the Isle of Arran. I said, I haven't blown it.
What did you do?
So I had to test soil. So I used to like pick up soil and I used to spit in my hand and rub the soil. And if you could turn it into the shape of a donut, it was a particular type of loam.
So that's how we got the job on IGN.
Yeah.
That was a crazy school trip.
Gav, this is your first time as well.
Yeah, I've been to
What do you make of it so far?
Really nice. Really, really good. Like, unfortunately, we've only had like an hour to look around. We went for a giant burger.
We sampled some of your healthy foods.
Yeah, that was really, really good. Then we tweeted about it and someone had a go at us going, it should be deep fried. And then we went to Forbidden Planet, and apparently that's not the place to go. There's a lot cooler places to go. So
let's give a shout out to Geekaboo. We got Geekaboo people in here, so that's your shout out.
Yeah.
Should we
you want to take? No,
but I think we should get our guest out.
Yeah. Okay.
This should come as a surprise to no one who's in this room, because everyone's seen him earlier.
That's why they're here.
No one who's clicked on the article, because it's in the headline. So without further ado, let's get our surprise guest, Mark Millar, out. Hello, Mark Millar.
Hello. I love the fact that the film festival got this tiny cheer and the brewery got this roof-raising cheer. It says everything about the crowd tonight.
Yeah. It's a good crowd, isn't it?
It's a good crowd.
Also a really good brewery.
So Mark Millar, comic legend, are currently riding high in the film charts, both in England and America and all over the world, in fact.
And South Korea.
Yeah.
South Korea, yeah. Mark's just been telling me that Kingsman is massive in South Korea.
Disproportionately enormous. It's weird, because we get the producer tally every morning, and there's this massive spike for South Korea, and we can't figure it out. Does anybody know, is there anything happening in South Korea? Because they're just going to see our film. I think everybody in the country has...
They love Colin Firth.
They really like dogs.
They
like pugs.
Really?
I like dogs. What are you saying? That's all in your face.
Maybe they heard all the stuff online about a certain joke towards the end of the film that certain people haven't been liking. A certain rude joke that I won't say now because it's a bit of a spoiler, but maybe they're into that.
That's all. That's going to sound so sinister in the podcast, but it's just audio.
We'll cut that bit out. That's a vine.
Yeah. We don't have time to cut it out. It has to go up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky to be part of the Glasgow Film Festival this year. Yeah. They've invited us up and put us in this amazing room at the Drygate Brewery.
It's amazing.
As part of the festival. So I just want to start off by talking about a bit of the festival, because you've been involved in Glasgow the last few years, haven't you? You've done bits and pieces.
I haven't this year, but usually we had a thing, it was the geek strand of the festival, which was fantastic. It was great, because they basically said to me, what films would you like to see for free? And I used to just choose films I personally wanted to see, and I'd be sitting in the cinema sometimes on my own watching these things, nobody else was interested. And then they thought, hang on, this is rubbish, and they stopped asking me.
But it's transformed into Nerdvana, which is kind of... It's the first festival I know of in the UK that's kind of mixing video games with movies, which seems to be quite a logical thing to do. That's what we do on IGN.
Yeah.
Having these two different strands come together. They've got video games playing in the IMAX. They've got they've had kind of a party where they're playing video game music.
Yeah.
King of cabinets and movies together.
Yeah, so the podcast drops on Friday the 27th, and on Saturday the 28th they're doing a screening of The King of Kong, which is one of the best documentaries of all time.
Yeah.
I think it's the best documentary I've ever seen. Like, genuinely, I love it. It's so
with the most interesting human being that's ever lived, Billy Mitchell.
Put your hands up if you've seen The King of Kong. Right, everybody else.
It's not enough.
More. Just illegally download it tonight. It's worth watching. Honestly.
Yeah, they won't care. They've made their money, definitely.
Mark, or go and see it on Saturday at the Glasgow Film Festival.
Saturday.
They're setting up where we're doing the podcast now. They're setting up an arcade, and with retro games. They're going to show the movie. But yeah, Billy Mitchell he's like Darth Vader brought to life.
He is.
Darth Vader with a mullet. Yeah. Well, Darth Vader kind of had a mullet.
Darth Vader with a mullet and a stars and stripes.
Oh my god, those ties! And he makes like these hot sauces, which I've been really trying to get hold of. Like, I love hot sauces. I want to taste Billy Mitchell's hot sauce. See,
we're going to cut that out.
Sounds mucky.
Well, surprise! Tonight we're going to make that come true.
I think there'd be little because he's got a really hot, like wispy beard. And I wonder if you just find little strands.
He has
of
a
this,
hot beard.
Wispy.
Oh, okay.
But there's a couple of films playing at the festival. I know we've talked about, Mark, that one of them you want to see, Electric Boogaloo.
I cannot wait for that.
Which I have seen. Yeah. That's about the history of canon films. And it's insane. They're the people that made the Master of the Universe movie. They made Superman 4. They call them the house that Chuck built because they made a bunch of Chuck Norris films that kept them in business. It does not get better than that.
Well, Superman 4 intrigues me because I'm a massive Superman fan. Like, the Christopher Reeve movies are what made me do what I do for a living. And I love the fact that they kind of ruined the whole franchise. There's some, it's
almost
amazing.
With pleasure as well.
The thing I love is the con they pulled on poor Christopher Reeve, where they said, hey, you can write the movie, you know, like, we know you're really clever, you write the film, and you're going to have a $100 million budget or something, and he shows up and it's like 10p they've got, and they had to film it in Milton Keynes instead of New York because they didn't have the money for the flights to New York.
It was right at the end of their story. There was they made Over the Top and Superman 4 at about the same time, and they paid Stallone $10 million, which came from the Superman budget. And so when you watch the film, they use the same stock footage of Superman flying towards the screen with all these different backgrounds throughout the film. It's embarrassing when you see them back to back.
The villain, like, think you had Terence Stamp, you had Gene Hackman, the Oscar winners, and the other ones, and the guy Mark Pillow who played Nuclear Man was a Chippendale. He was one of the Chippendales.
There's not a lot of threat from a man who has pillow in his name.
But another documentary that I don't know if it's on your radar that's playing at the festival is Jodorowsky's Dune, which is up there with the best documentaries I've ever seen. Do you know anything about it?
No, I just know of his plans, but I don't.
Yeah, he's this surrealist director who spent about 10 years trying to bring Dune to the screen in the mid-70s, and it's amazing it didn't get made. His script was for a 14-hour movie, so it's weird that didn't get made.
Can you imagine turning that in? Like, I've gone a bit weird with this one. Like, that looks really big, mate.
But Pink Floyd agreed to do the music, and his cast was Salvador Dali, Orson Welles, David Carradine, Gloria Swanson, and Mick Jagger. Trouble. That's insane, isn't it?
And Mike Reid from EastEnders.
But the amazing thing about it is he had H.R. Giger doing the designs for it, Dan O'Bannon doing the special effects, and when it all fell apart, because they'd made friends with each other, they went on and made Alien together, as did some of the other people. And they show you the sketches that Jodorowsky did for the movie. There's Terminator scenes in it. There's Star Wars, because it went around all the studios. Everyone nicked everything he did.
Is that all in the documentary?
It's all in the documentary. You see these pictures, and it's like, well, that's from Star Wars. Yeah. Everyone else stole it. Wow. So it's sad, but it's also quite inspiring.
Well, it's 14 hours long. There's a lot in there they can steal, isn't there?
But yeah, I recommend those two. And also, Fright Fest is going on this weekend, so if you're in the Glasgow vicinity, check it out. Eli Roth produced a movie called Clown, about an evil clown, which is weird. I
love you said, like, it's Fright Fest, it's a clown, evil clown, not nice clown.
No.
So you know.
And there's a really good documentary about the making of the Blair Witch Project, which I thoroughly recommend.
That sounds like the most sort of, like, I don't know, that's pop eating itself, isn't it? When there's a documentary on the Blair Witch Project.
You're like, we got loads of footage that we shot while we were making it. Like, I know, we watched it.
You had 2 cameras?
There's got to be a terrible incident happens to the people who made the documentary about the Blair Witch Project. Cannibals,
like Immigration Street.
So I want to get the audience on side early on, Mark. So let's talk about Scottish movies.
Okay.
What is your favourite Scottish movie of all time?
I would say it has to be, and I'm sure everybody in here, put your hands up if you've seen Gregory's Girl. You guys have seen it? I don't know.
Yeah.
How were you allowed to watch this?
I used to work in Woolworths, so it was always like the one you could buy for $2.99.
Well,
They always had it on.
I've seen Gregory's Two Girls as well.
Gregory's Two Girls is amazing.
Is that the one that's on RedTube for free? Yeah.
One Gregory, two girls.
Gregory's Two Girls, for anybody who hasn't seen it, is the follow-up to it.
I've never seen that.
No, it's a real
I didn't even
thing.
know it exists.
With John Gordon Sinclair still playing Gregory, but as a teacher. And the charm of the first one is that he's a schoolboy who's in love with a girl in his class and fancies her. The second one, he's a teacher who's in love with a girl in his class. That's got a different vibe, right? It's got a different vibe.
There's nothing charming about that, is there?
Weirdly, it didn't go down so well, you know.
Yeah.
So Gregory's Girl.
Gregory's Girl's fantastic.
So did you have a crush on... well, which girl did you have a crush on in that film?
Neither of them, actually.
Oh, okay.
No,
Gregory.
Gregory, yeah.
They seem more like friends to me. I don't know,
Yeah.
you know. But but I loved it, and I think what I loved about it was the idea it was something I saw in a cinema, but it was Scottish, and that blew my mind. I mean, I saw it when I was about 10. It was on with Life O'Brien, and I sneaked into Life O'Brien because somebody in school said it had full frontal nudity in it, right? And I was only 10, and I was like, I want to see what this is like. And we sneaked in and we saw Gregory's Girl at the same time, and it blew my mind because John Wayne or Clint Eastwood or whatever, you know, was on the big screen.
Yeah.
Somebody with a Cumbernauld accent. It seemed incredible, and suddenly that bridge to Hollywood just seemed a little bit closer, didn't it? You know.
Yeah,
I'm saying that to English people. What am I saying? You know. But,
No,
I'm Welsh. All I had was Twin Town.
but around that time, it was you had Local Hero, which is another classic, but that's not aimed at you. That Gregory's Girl was aimed at you.
Exactly. It was like X-Men without mutants because it was all at a school. It was great. You know. So.
Dan, what's yours?
So I was thinking about this on the train. So
were you train spotting?
no, bit obvious there, Chris. So I was going to say a recent movie, Under the Skin, which I only saw last year. I saw it. I didn't see it at the cinema. I saw it when at a special screening. I saw it under a train station. It was not ideal conditions. It was crap.
Was this on your phone?
I illegally downloaded
special
it.
screening, Dan.
That's what Millar told me to. So it's great. It's illegally downloaded. Watch it wherever you want. It's a really interesting movie, and I've learned more about it since that a lot of the scenes were kind of slightly improv, and people were put upon, and like Scarlett Johansson turned up and said, "Do you want to lift in my car?" and people were acting really awkward with her. And it's really surreal scenes, like when the kind of strange sexual fantasies happen. There's some really impressive kind of... sounds weird, like I'm going to say something really rude there. I was on about the way it was staged, but now it makes me sound like a pervert.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Do you know she was in our neck of the woods when she was filming that, and she was in our local shop in Roots and Fruits and all that kind of stuff? It was quite exciting because there was a rumour that somebody saw it at the BP garage. And we were like, no way, why would Scarlett And then there was this film 6 months later.
Can we just go back? Is there something called Roots and Fruits?
That's a shop in the West End.
That's
it's like a fruit shop, you know. So.
It's like when at university I went to my local corner shop and I saw Roy Keane buying a can of Fanta. And I was like, it's not Roy Keane, it is Roy Keane, because he was manager at Sunderland at the time. I was really worried he was going to headbutt me. And he didn't.
There's nothing more exciting than seeing famous people doing things that ordinary people do, you know? Like one of my friends saw Nick Cage in Bath. Like he lived quite near Nick Cage when he lived in Bath, and he saw him buying some washing up liquid in Bath.
Yeah.
And I'd never even considered Nick Cage washing up before, and then I thought he must.
Yeah, he has to. He's not that decadent. He's like pinning everything.
I drove from Aberystwyth, where I went to uni, all the way down to Bath to watch Nick Cage turn the Christmas lights on in Bath.
Yeah, that's like,
spent so much money doing that just to see a man just go, all right, Christmas, there you go. All right, see you there.
You talk about celebs doing the mundane, but I guess drinking a pint is kind of mundane in an empty pub in the middle of the afternoon. But you know Jason Fleming, don't you? So he used to own a pub in Battersea, maybe.
He had a pub?
And him and Brad Pitt got off work on Benjamin Button early one day. So they went to the pub, empty, just drinking. And these two female students came in, one of whom was obsessed with Brad Pitt. She saw him at the bar, absolutely lost it. Started hyperventilating, screaming, almost passing out. And Jason said it was the weirdest thing he saw because she kind of fell to the floor. Brad ran over to her and was kind of holding her, cradling her, and saying, calm down, I know it's me.
Making it worse. Made it worse. She died.
Made it worse. But they like calmed her down, got her some water, she calmed down and got her a drink and then did a photo with her and went back to their pint. And Jason said that was weird, and Pitt was like, yeah, you'd be surprised, it happens quite a lot. Imagine going through life like that.
Having to save
it's hard. It's hard.
Gav, have you got a favourite Scottish movie?
Does Wicker Man count? Because
we weren't sure about this. Does Wicker Man count?
I would call that
Criteria. I'm having that then.
Well, that's mine. No, that's mine then. It counts. No, go on.
I think Wicker Man, I think because seeing it at a really young age, thinking, I have no idea what's going on. And I think it was one of the only times that, as a kid, my mum was just like, yeah, go on, you can watch that if you want. And I think, because I was born in 1985, so I'm not wasn't born in the 60s or anything like that, but I don't think my mum or dad ever watched what I was watching. I was watching, because I now that I've got a niece and we talk about the stuff that she's not allowed to watch. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, can we watch The Lost Boys? My sister's like, she can't watch The Lost Boys. Like, we were watching Lost Boys when we were 7 years old.
Because there's the word boy in it. It's it sounds like it's a kid's film.
Exactly, yeah.
The same thing.
Your pants been off.
Anybody who's under 30 almost certainly saw RoboCop when they were 5.
Yeah.
And it was an uncle or a gran or something said, "Oh, you'll love RoboCop. It looks good, it's on."
My dad took me to
and it's got 3 traumatic scenes, isn't it? Like a melting man and when the Jesus Christ murder. Yeah.
My dad took me to the cinema in Pontypridd to see Terminator 2. We just walked in. This is all right, I'm good. It's a good one. This is.
That is a phenomenon. My dad was super laid back. He allowed me. My mum does listen to this podcast, but he allowed me to bunk off school on a Friday once, and we went to the video shop and rented loads of Nightmare on Elm Street. I was devastated that Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was corrupted. The tape was all mangled, but that's actually a blessing in disguise, because the second one's awful. Yeah.
But I think with Wicker Man, that's what I'm trying to say, is that was the only time where, because I was allowed to watch anything, where I watched something and I was like, I shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah. That's exciting.
I have no idea what's going on,
So no one said Shallow Grave or Trainspotting. And I wasn't either, but I think I should, because it's a brilliant double bill.
They're fantastic films. Yeah.
And you'll remember this, Mark. At the time, we didn't have films for us, because Scorsese was older than us. He was beyond our generation. Tarantino came along, changed everything. And we had nothing in the UK. And then suddenly, Shallow Grave came along by this new director, and it kind of blew our minds. This was this could be our Tarantino. Then he followed it up with Trainspotting, and it just felt like the British film industry is more exciting than the American, and then we didn't kick on.
I don't know, I think British film prior to that for about 10 years really was rubbish. It was always things about miners' strikes and brass bands and all that, wasn't it? I mean, it was real garbage.
Kitchen sink dramas.
Horrible. Yeah. It was stuff you would never pay to go and see, but I don't know, Guy Ritchie came along and Matthew Vaughn and all
Guy
those
was
guys,
great. The first couple of guys, Matthew Vaughn, you're biased. He makes your movies.
I like the adaptations of my stuff.
Those are his best work.
But I was going to say a really old film called I Know Where I'm Going. Have you seen that one?
No, I've never heard.
Powell and Pressburger. It's set in the Hebrides and on kind of the island of Mull, but it's actually a mystical island that doesn't exist. But Powell and Pressburger are some of my favourite filmmakers, and it's a romantic comedy that's really interesting and really out there. And considering it was made in the 40s, it could have been made yesterday.
I'm going to blow your minds with a Powell and Pressburger fact. Right, that's not often you'll hear this, but Andrew McDonald, who produced Trainspotting and Shallow Grave, his grandfather. Did you know that?
I knew that.
All right, okay.
But loads of people don't.
Yeah. And for the purpose of the podcast, I should have pretended I didn't.
Yeah.
Let's go over that again. We'll
honest. So what's the film called?
I Know Where I'm Going.
Do they test soil?
No. It's not the Test Soil podcast, Dan. I'm telling you that.
There must be one. There must be a farming podcast, isn't there? There's got to be this stuff, where people are talking about the difference between John Deere and Zeta tractors.
It's actually interesting because the category that we're putting on iTunes is
games and hobbies.
Games and hobbies. Yeah. So our biggest nemesis is not Giant Bomb and GameSpot and all this. It's Gardeners Weekly.
Gardeners Weekly. Yeah, Gardeners. Well, it's us against them each week.
So Titchmarsh,
we'll come for you.
So Mark, I want to take you back.
Okay.
We've got you here. When you were a kid, were you DC or Marvel?
It depends what period in my life, actually. How many? Put your hands up if you read comics here. That's a reasonable number.
Hands up if you read Mark Millar comics. Oh, that number's gone way down. It's gone way. You can't see it. You can't see
more people than read comics.
Who wouldn't put their hands up?
It's not.
But you've got Marvel fans and DC fans as Celtic and Rangers, but I was like Mo Johnson. I started off as a Marvel guy, then I became a DC guy.
Non-football fans ain't getting that one.
But it's amazing though, because as a kid, Stan Lee made one appearance on Pebble Mill, right, which is this show that probably most people in here won't remember, but it was like This Morning, just a really crap sort of daytime TV show.
It made This Morning look exciting, look Hollywood, didn't it?
It was from Birmingham, it was live from Birmingham, and I used to think, Birmingham must be amazing, this is great, And and they had Stan Lee as a guest one day, and he literally came over when I was 7. He appeared on Pebble Mill. My mum let me take the day off school to watch it because Stan Lee was on Pebble Mill, and all my friends did the same. We all saw Stan Lee. We all became Marvel fans, and it's so weird that Stan was probably like, this shit that we're doing now, Pebble Mill, and yet he influenced the whole generation.
Kind of like David Bowie on Top of the Pops in the 70s. Yeah. It was Stan Lee on Pebble Mill in the 80s.
Have you ever met him and told him that story?
I did actually. Yeah, I mean, Stan has been like my guru. I met him in person when I was about 18, and then when I was in I don't know, maybe 32 or something, I spoke to him on the phone. I interviewed him for a magazine, and he was the guy who said to me, you should stop doing Marvel characters and create your own characters. Genuinely, it was like a life-changing moment. He said, I didn't do DC characters like Batman and Superman and everything. I created the Marvel Universe, and it was the most inspiring thing. It was like a Tony Robbins talk or something on the phone, and I just went off and sort of changed my life after talking to him. So Stan's like my god,
That's awesome.
So it was DC for one time, then Marvel for another. It kind of...
Yeah, I started Marvel, and then once with the Stan Lee stuff, and then I flipped to DC.
What was the reason for the segue?
The flip was Superman the movie. I saw Superman the movie, which is a prequel to Superman 4. And I saw that when I was 9, and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And I made a career plan to be a superhero, genuinely, when I saw that film.
And how did that pan out?
Worked out pretty good.
What was the plan? What was the plan made up of?
Oh, this is true. I mean, like whenever I was about 9 till I was about 13, my friends and I were going to be like Batman or something, and that's where Kick-Ass came from. That's where the idea came from. Because 3 of us at school, 2 of us, one fell by the wayside, but 2 of us went to karate every week, and we would go to weightlifting. And things.
I did something really similar. I wrote a letter to our local police department saying, I will protect the streets of Blackburn if you give me a mini motorcycle and a helmet with a cool design.
Did you get it?
No.
Not interested.
Council struck it down, mate. Awkward.
So, you read that?
And do you have Christopher Reeve's cape, or am I making that up?
No, that's true. I've got 2 pieces of memorabilia from Superman. I have Christopher Reeve's cape, which I bought in an online auction about 10 years ago, and I've got the cat that Superman saves from the tree in Superman the movie. Now dead. But some opportunistic bastard, had it stuffed because it was a famous cat.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, so it was a real cat?
Yeah, it's a real cat.
And they had his stuff and you bought it?
Yeah, I mean, you see the cat's crawling and all that, like over Superman in the film, and it's like, Frisky, come down from there, that moment, and like Superman flies and gets the cat, and then the cat dies, somebody stuffs it, it's on eBay, and it's now sitting on my piano.
Does it come with a certificate?
I've got a certificate of authenticity that this is a cat, so.
Do you mind if we ask how much you paid for this cat?
Yeah, how much is your pussy?
The cat, I paid $500. Which was £300.
Right.
So it's not bad.
It's weird, if I'm honest. It's weird.
Well,
that's a cool bit of memorabilia.
Have you got a lot of memorabilia?
No, well, I actually planned to start a memorabilia collection because I thought, wouldn't it be cool if the house was like filled with interesting memorabilia? And I've only got those 2 things. And that was about 10 years ago.
Do you take them home and your wife was like, this is a really nice hobby you've got? It's like, got this dead cat. Right, you're not doing it anymore.
The cape's all right. The cape can stay, but the cat. So where's
it's like
cape?
Psycho, isn't it? It's like Psycho. I've just got a dead cat. Dead Adam West.
That's what you should start doing. Just getting all dead animals.
Why is all these holes in the walls? Where's the cape? The cat's on the piano.
The cape's framed. The cape's actually framed. And like it's hanging up. It looks like I've killed Superman. I'm some big game hunter. And Superman was taken down.
That's Superman's cape. That's his cat. Go for Lois Lane there.
Coming for you, Lana.
Margot Kidder got away.
I nicked her.
Do you have a favourite comic writer and artist of all time?
For me, it would have to be 2 guys. I almost cannot choose. It's like your mum and your dad, but it's Alan Moore and Frank Miller, because they were the guys who that was the baptism for me, when I read Watchmen and Dark Knight and all that kind of stuff. Just at the age I would have been getting out of it, I got so back in it, like I was in 5th and 6th year at school, And it was one of those things, I don't know if guys in here have had the same thing, where you pass it around all your friends.
Yeah.
Like, I was so impressed. And even people who weren't into it, I'd be like, just give it a try. It's so good, you know. And Millar and Moore just had that. They owned the 80s for me.
Yeah.
Have you got any interesting stories about interactions with either of them? Because they're both quite interesting characters.
Yeah.
Moore, well, do you know the thing? It's funny because Moore's been quite reclusive. For people who don't know, he's the guy who created V for Vendetta, Watchmen, all that kind of stuff. And he sort of disappeared off the scene around about the time I came in, around about the time I was 19. I can't help but feel it's slightly related to you. But he's a really interesting guy. I heard he's got a house that's 100 miles inland, and he's called his house Sea View. And I thought, I immediately loved him when I heard that.
Yeah.
And you know, so he was like a massive inspiration. And Frank Miller, who's amazing as well. For people who don't know, Frank Miller pioneered everything in comics, like from the format the books appear in to the deals that we get. Like, I mean, historically, see if you created something. If I'd created Kick-Ass or something 30, 40 years ago, it would be owned by a massive corporation, and I'd have been lucky to get a ticket to the premiere. Genuinely, the guys who created Superman were penniless, you know, they died of nothing. So it's amazing. Guys like Frank Miller paved the way for ungrateful guys like me, the next generation, to come in and reap the rewards of it. Yeah.
We're going like massively, because like instead of Batman, when I was growing up, Daredevil was my guy. Like
the Miller stuff?
Like all the stuff, and
we grew up on like, you know, when we were teenagers, like Marvel Knights from Bendis, Brubaker later on.
I cannot wait to tell Bendis that you were a teenager.
I know.
Whenever you were reading this stuff. How old are you now?
28.
Right.
I actually had to think about that. I actually think about it. I'm 14 3/4.
Suspicious. Well, we've been having like a big conversation about whether or not Man Without Fear is better than Dark Knight, and I think I go for Man Without Fear.
The one that Johnny Romita drew?
Yeah, it's John Romita Jr.
Yeah.
It's right. Dark Knight was so revolutionary at its time. Like, you'd never even Batman had only been Adam West Batman up to that point. So it was so revolutionary. Where you'd probably seen the Tim Burton movies and things by the time you read it.
I think I probably did. Yeah.
I mean, at the time, it was like a firecracker that just passed through the industry. It was amazing. It was so good.
Yeah.
Do you have, obviously you love the original Superman motion picture, do you have a favourite movie adaptation of a comic book, and you're not allowed to say Kick-Ass, because I know you will, if you can?
Kingsman.
I would say it probably is the first Superman movie. Like, the thing that's amazing, right, for anybody in here who's got children, what I love doing with my children is getting them obsessed with things that I was obsessed with. And I've got 3 daughters, and they know everything about Superman. It's amazing, you know. And my 3-year-old, when she was 2.5, started watching the Superman movies every morning. We get up about 5:30, which I'm not that happy about. This is the bit, that's the sad bit. We get up about 5:30 every morning, and we stick on usually Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, or Supergirl, right? And like, my 3-year-old's obsessed with it. She sits and watches it every morning, and it's given me a whole new appreciation of it, because I sort of watch it through her eyes. Like, every time something happens, she goes and looks around at me, even though she watches it every morning, you know. So, but they are such good movies, and I just can't imagine people watching Man of Steel.
Did you just say Supergirl and Superman 4 are great movies?
Do you know, because they like them, you can see when you're a parent, it's weird, you kind of love something by osmosis. And because your kids like, this is amazing, you're like, this is amazing. Like, I took my oldest daughter to see Fantastic Four when it came out, and Fantastic Four's crap, right? Like that first one. We've all seen it. But she was loving it, right? She was really young, my oldest kid. And she actually held my hand in the fight with Dr. Doom at the end, and she leaned over and she said, "Dad, thanks for taking me to see this. This is the best film I've ever seen." And suddenly it went from a sort of cinema score D- kind of thing up to like an A+. And now I think, that was an all right film. You know?
You didn't turn around and go, "No, it's not. Shut up." It's shite. No, get in the car. We're going to watch Superman 1.
There's so many continuity glitches in this movie, actually.
So what's your take? You just mentioned it briefly then, Man of Steel. What do you think of that movie?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Like, I went to see it,
especially because they're building a lot of stuff on top of that next.
It's funny. I think it feels slightly misjudged. I don't want to slag anybody off, because a few of my friends worked on the film, and but it's weird. I went to see it like on Father's Day. It came out the Thursday before Father's Day, and I waited till the Sunday, and we went as a gang, and I came out of it really sad. And it was weird, you know, spoilers, but you know, Superman snaps the guy's neck at the end and everything. And you think, hang on a minute, you know, and like, you come out of the movie,
just
like,
put his hand over his
Superman
eyes.
Should Superman should be a series of rescues that makes you feel fantastic. And you come out of it. Batman avenges people, Superman rescues people. So there's you didn't even know why you came out of it feeling sad. But you kind of came out of the film thinking, it was a kind of downer when you should have come out like feeling great.
We've talked before about a positivity in the Marvel films. it's not happening with the DC movies at the moment.
The DC films feel as if they're from 2005. You know, they feel like they're trying to take themselves seriously to appeal to a mainstream audience.
Yeah.
Where Marvel have fought that battle. Since 2008, since Iron Man, Marvel have just said, look, just enjoy yourselves and have a good time. And DC, I think, should be even brighter than the Marvel stuff, you know. So I don't know, it feels like a slight misfire, this DC stuff. But it can correct itself, you know, as time goes on.
You were a part of the team that Marvel kind of put together for the Iron Man movie back in like the late 2000s.
Yeah.
Were you conscious of that even back then? You're saying that the DC movies feel like from 10 years ago. Were you like, we should like be more true to the source material? What were the kind of objectives you had going into that Iron Man project?
There pretty much were no DC movies at the time. Like, I went to those meetings 2006, 2007, and I
suppose Begins like 2005.
So Batman Begins
just around
But people forget Batman Begins didn't do enormously well. Batman Begins made, I think, 391 million, right? Which for the amount of money that they spent on it, just broke even by the time you count ticket sales and things, you know, like half and for the distributors. So Batman Begins wasn't like, it was Dark Knight before it really caught fire. Yeah. So Marvel weren't even looking at DC. Marvel just had their own plan. They were looking at X-Men and Spider-Man, which had both done incredibly well. So it was actually really ballsy of Marvel when you think about it. Like Hulk and Iron Man, nobody had heard of Iron Man, you know, like I was the only guy for 100 miles that knew Tony Stark was Iron Man growing up, you know. So like what they did was they borrowed, I think, 500 million or something. They got a war chest of 500 million to start making movies, hoping that it worked out all right, which is quite brave, isn't it? You know, and they put 200 million into Iron Man.
Yeah,
I mean, who would have thought? And Robert Downey Jr., who was really kind of
back then,
the least
really,
bankable
it's
star,
like almost easy to forget. Where we were back
and I remember people were talking about Clive Owen at the time as well. I don't know how many people know this, but Clive Owen is who they'd been talking about for Iron Man.
Really?
I remember in the early meetings. And can you imagine how different history would be if Clive Owen had been Iron Man? It's quite a different...
Tom Cruise spent years as well. He was very interested in playing Iron Man.
Yeah.
And he's got the cockiness, but
he'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I think he would have been a good Iron Man.
I was involved in those Tom Cruise ones for like 1 week. It was back in about 2003 or something. I ended up doing some... It was just phone calls.
Yeah.
And they were talking about bringing me in to do a draft of it then, when it was over at New Line. And it sounded good, but their idea was to do it more like James Bond. That Iron Man was a guy who worked for the government. So he was kind of the bad
Agent
guy.
Shield,
he was a weapons manufacturer who put on his own suit and went in and took care of bad situations kind of thing. I don't know if I should be saying this. I probably signed some non-disclosures.
It's like a red dot on your head.
If you're watching this on the podcast, please stop now. And rewind.
No, we won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
So a big change happening in the Marvel universe soon is the storyline Civil War.
Yeah.
You wrote Civil War, Mark.
It's very exciting.
That's pretty awesome.
It's exciting for me actually. Like I love the idea of seeing like Downey Jr. facing off against Chris Evans and all that. You know, I think that'll be really exciting to see on screen. Like, because I mean, I didn't even think about a movie when I was doing the comic. I wrote it back in 2006 or something. You know, so it's a while back. And the last thing you imagine when you're sitting doing your book generally is Downey Jr. or whatever is going to be in this. And
even now when you're writing comics, do you even?
I never think of the movie. Never think of the movie. I think it would be too distracting. It'd be like writing something and thinking this would be an amazing beach towel, or something. You know, like you can't think of it anything other than what you're doing. Even when I was writing Kick-Ass 3, and Aaron and Chloe had played those parts in the film, I never saw it as Aaron and Chloe. I just saw it as the cartoon characters, you know, the drawings.
Like Ultimates, like I'm a massive Ultimates fan, and that is just peppered and layered with so many film references and so many, like, the characters all look like, you know, there's that scene where they're all sitting around going, you know, they're bored and they're like, who would play us in a Hollywood movie sort of thing. Even when you're writing that, do you honestly think you just like...
I just always see it as a
that's
comic,
amazing.
You know, but I mean, I'll make references to film or I'll make references to games or other books and things like that, but I don't know, I think, like, I see it as such a different medium. I don't even really see myself as a film guy. I kind of go holidays into film, like I go and do meetings in Hollywood and things like that, but I see myself primarily as a comic guy who visits the movie sets and sits in the edit room and everything, but I see my job as a comic guy.
But with Civil War, wasn't it like the best-selling Marvel title of the last 20 years or something?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I think it's actually the best-selling for 18 years, which doesn't sound as good as 20 years.
And still available.
Nearly 20 years.
I mean, I only said that because you texted it to me when I was coming up on the trailer. That's true. But do you have any visibility on the movie, or is it just something that you've left behind and it's their baby?
It's just there to play with. Like, I mean, they use stuff from comics in the films, you know. So like Ultimates obviously made its way into Avengers and Captain America and things.
Because you put Samuel Jackson pretty much as Nick Fury, right? That was you?
I did the African-American Nick Fury, you know. But my friend, the artist on the book, Brian Hitch,
Yeah.
I'd had it as a sort of Morgan Freeman kind of look, and Brian drew him as in the first appearance, and Brian drew him more as Sam Jackson. And the weird thing was, what we didn't realise is Sam Jackson read comics.
Really?
Which is quite odd, because we thought, Sam Jackson will never see this. And yet his face has been used every month in this comic.
He's like, right, I won't sue you, but I want to be in every single one of the films.
He ended up signing a 9-picture deal, so he was delighted.
That's awesome.
Because if you don't know, the character is the Flash, by the way. I interviewed him, asked him what his favourite character.
Sam Jackson?
Yeah,
really?
I interviewed him. He terrified me.
Yeah.
But his favourite character is the Flash. Even though he's a Marvel fan, his favourite character is the Flash.
I've got to ask the audience, what age do you think Sam Jackson is? Shout out random numbers. 70?
he went in high.
67? He looks fantastic. 67? He looks younger than me. I couldn't believe it. We obviously saw him on Kingsman, but he's like a vegan and all that sort of stuff. He's in the most incredible shape, and he moves like a teenager or something. It's unreal.
In Winter Soldier, you never think that.
No.
Wow.
If he was a Scottish guy, he'd be 19.
With Civil War, though, what do you think could you speculate as to what they might change or have to change, or you think they'll change to turn it into the next Captain America movie, which is what it's going to be?
I don't think they'll have to change much, especially now they've got Spider-Man. Now Spider-Man.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you. What are your feelings about Spider-Man rejoining the MCU?
Character in that story.
Well, it's funny because you think people kept saying to me they can't do Civil War without Spider-Man, but in the actual book, Spider-Man only appears in about 6 pages.
Because the rumour was for a long time that Black Panther was going to kind of fill in for that kind of role. That was the rumour going around anyway.
Well, in the end, probably what they've got is they've got Spider-Man back, which is actually great. As somebody who's kind of been a bit baffled with the last 2 Spider-Man films, like the idea of Marvel getting it back does feel like coming home a little bit for the character, doesn't it? I mean, Marvel, it's not that they can do no wrong. I mean, Thor 2 wasn't very good and Iron Man 2 wasn't very good, so they have their misfires as well, but I think Spider-Man's like the holy grail for them. They're not going to mess this up. They're going to make it great, and all eyes are on them, so they have to bring their A game to it,
Yeah. Having recently read Civil War on the train up, it's amazing how many... I'm going to be honest. How many characters, though? Was that tough to write with all these disparate characters?
It was honestly a nightmare. It was the hardest thing I've ever written. Like, there was almost no pleasure in it, because what happened was I was tying in every month with 40 books, right? And if you can imagine, it's hard to write something anyway, right? It's hard to write. But to write something that you've said to 40 different creative teams, okay, right, I'm going to leave him here in this month, if you can spin off from that point. And I was emailing all these writers and having to read all their scripts and everything. Jesus. And they were all messing up. Everybody was messing up. Everybody was like late with their scripts. Their book was shipping too late, giving away reveals too early and things. Yeah. Honestly, it was a nightmare. It was like juggling gas. It was awful. But like everybody who's done one of those crossovers said it's like passing a very difficult stool. It's like it's one of those things that you're so relieved at the end of it.
40 books though, that's insane.
Oh, it was horrendous. It was 9 months of my life when I was writing, and it was lovely at the end. I just thought, I'm glad I've done that. There's only a few guys who've done those big crossovers. There's a little handful of guys who've done it, so it's nice to have done it.
What was the hardest character that you had a crossover with?
There was so many books I hated that I had to read.
Really?
And it's really hard. Like, I don't know if you like homework, where you have to watch a documentary that you're not interested in. It was a bit like that, where I had to read people's books.
And literally just for cameos, isn't it? Someone coming in, delivering 2 lines, and then
it was a nightmare. Being off screen. And I'd even have somebody smiling at somebody, and they would say, they would never smile at them, like in the background. It says, because in Marvel Team Up issued 48 in 1979, and I had to get everything checked, and it could change entire stories.
Did they have a couple of people you could speak to? Because we recently had Gary Whitta on the podcast, who you're working with now. And he was saying he's writing the next Star Wars spin-off movie, the first one. Yeah. That he just, every day he'd go to these 2 people down the corridor at Lucasfilm who know everything, this encyclopedic knowledge. And is it the same with Marvel?
Marvel had 2 guys. There was Ralph Macchio and Tom Brevoort. Ralph's retired now.
What, the dude from Karate Kid? Amazing.
And Tom Brevoort has read every single Marvel comic, which is amazing. So you would phone him up and say, hey, how does Captain America feel about the Falcon's niece or something? And he knows. That's amazing.
That's awesome. They're doing so much like normal stuff in it as well. Was it kind of stuff like, how would Captain America hold his coffee cup?
And so we're going to get a new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Who do you think should play the new Spider-Man?
Taron Egerton.
I kind of knew you'd say that.
Nobody knows who he is. He's the guy from Kingsman, by the way.
Yeah. The guy from Kingsman, which is obviously Mark's film. But also, I'm in total agreement. Like,
he's Welsh. Let's get him in.
I'm not biased, but he has all the attributes, I would say.
Wales needs that money. Let's see that tax
We've had a Welsh Batman.
Yeah.
They should play. I think Christian Bale should have played in Welsh.
Definitely. It'd been better than the voice he did.
What would a Welsh Batman be like?
Really chilled out. It's like Joker's over here. Nah, we'll be alright.
The Batcave would be a lockup.
Gotham's gone to shit. Like,
what do you think Taron would bring to that role, though?
I don't know. He's just my pal. That's why I'm pimping him.
So unhelpful.
Because there's a rumour going around that he was linked with Han Solo recently as well.
I love the idea of that.
He can do anything.
Yeah. I don't know. He's cool,
he is great in that movie.
Do you know, somebody appears who's good, and then they get talked about for everything, don't they?
He was like Cyclops rumours, even if that wasn't even credible.
But Spider-Man, with the age and kind of the performance in Kingsman, it really seems to make sense to me. The kind of attitude, the cockiness, the comedy timing. He does the action. He's likeable. He's charming.
My favourite Twitter thing I saw today, actually, was bring back Tobey Maguire for Spider-Man.
Oh, no.
And I love the idea that it's still in high school, but Tobey Maguire.
15-year-old,
Like, you remember that guy Brandon Lee, that creepy guy who pretended he was 16 and went back to school in Bears Den? Do you remember this? I'd like to see it like that.
But also, in the last Spider-Man, didn't Tobey Maguire have a very bad back, and there were lots of problems on that. So he'd be a teenager who's 35, but kind of
15-year-old bad back Spider-Man. That sounds great.
The thing is, it's going to be really hard because I think Andrew Garfield, for me, nailed Peter Parker.
Are you serious?
I thought he was really good. I loved him as Peter Parker. I loved his Peter Parker.
Let me dissect this. Right? I think he's a very good actor, actually, but I'll tell you why it felt so wrong from the beginning for me, is that the journey of Spider-Man, right, is that Peter Parker's a guy nobody likes, right, who gets bitten by a spider and he becomes a cool guy, but not in real life. He has to pretend he's still an idiot kind of thing, but he gets to dress up at night and be the cool guy. And Peter Parker in that first film was already going out with Emma Stone, right? At the start, he was getting off with Emma Stone, right?
That's fair.
So that journey, if anything, his life's going down when he gets bitten by the spider, you know?
That's why he hangs up. He's like, I can't be arsed for this. I'm just going to go bang Emma Stone.
And do a bit of skateboarding.
The fact that people fancied him was immediately, you knew it was wrong. The minute people fancied him, he was the wrong guy.
I do understand that, but I think even like Amazing Spider-Man, like he's never... When you see Peter Parker, he's still now, when he's Spider-Man, he's a good-looking guy, and I always associate that sort of like confidence with Peter Parker, which I think Andrew Garfield really, really had. I don't know. I
think you've got to go back to the origins of the character, because I think it's been done so wrong so many times, but that's a nebbish quality that Peter Parker had is so integral. It's like, imagine Clark Kent being a cool guy.
Yeah,
it just wouldn't be right, you know? And that's why Dean Kane's Clark Kent was so horrible as well, you know, because he was a cool guy. You know, Clark Kent's got to be this goofy kind of like...
Yeah, I understand that,
guy, you know?
Do you think we're going to hit saturation point with these superhero movies, though? Because it's cranking up. We're going to get more and more for the next kind of 5 years until I think there's going to be 7 or 8 coming out in 1 year.
Well, people always say that, you know, and there's never seems to be that many. Like, I remember a few years ago people working out a graph and they said by next year there's going to be 20 superhero movies a week coming out and all that, and it never seems to happen. We always seem to get about 4 a year.
They dated,
this year's lie.
The DC and Marvel announcements.
Those DC movies are never going to happen.
Some of them are never going to happen. Ezra Miller's just going to be going, so when we're shooting? I've got some running shoes.
Let's get on the... like, in 2025 I'm doing Shazam. It's like, these things are years away from happening. But it's honestly, like, it all depends on Superman versus Batman.
I know it does. There's so much riding on it.
And I mean,
they're throwing, every week they're throwing a new character in, aren't they?
What do you think of the Momoa Aquaman look that was tweeted out the other week?
I don't know. Well, it's all right, you know. Here's my thing with Aquaman, right? This is something I've always wondered, is like right, I'm a big fan of Little Mermaid. And the Little Mermaid makes sense, right? The Little Mermaid makes sense because she talks underwater, but it's a cartoon, so you don't mind. How is Aquaman going to talk to his pals underwater? It's like, in film, it's going to be really hard to do. So they're going to have Aquaman in Detroit or something like that. They're going to have him just walking
around.
Do you
want to put a shirt on? It's winter.
They're just going to have like, I think the water is going to be like a blue filter, and they're just going to have to forget that it's actually water and there's no bubbles or anything like that. That's what we're going to have to do.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I trust the market, right? Like the audience will tell you if it's good or not, and they'll show up or they won't show up. The DC stuff, I think, you know, I'm a massive fan of that stuff. I hope it does well, but I just don't see it. Like Marvel, they knew Marvel was putting out that press release with all their movies to 2018, and DC were like, here's our press release to 2019, you know, and they were just making stuff up, you know. They were just
with little fanfare. They did an investors call. It was very.
So which ones definitely aren't going to happen, Mark? I want you going on record now.
Well, I think Justice League's got to happen and Wonder Woman's got to happen because they're making them just now, you know. I think after that, all bets are off because it depends if they lose money on the next ones, you know. I mean, I remember everybody saying Green Lantern 2, you know, everybody plans for Green Lantern 2. And it's, I mean, the honest truth is, you know, they're really expensive. These things are really expensive.
Yeah.
And if the last one didn't make money, they can't throw another 200 million at these things. I hope it works for them because I love that stuff, you know, but we'll see.
Do you think there's more chance of the next 5 Millar projects going to production than the next 5 DC projects?
I don't know. I know what the next 5 Millar things are, you know. I mean, I know what the plan is, but I just don't know what order they're in. That's the thing. Like, it's weird. Like, one minute, you know, you're told there's an actor who's going to be in something, and then suddenly he's not available, so something gets put back 6 months and things. So you never know. I mean, if all goes well, we should have 2 more filming by the end of this year.
So what can you tell us now, though? Because obviously a lot of the comics, the original comics that you've written, are in various states of kind of pre-production. Yeah. So what can you tell us about what is going to happen or what you want to see happen very soon? It
is funny because, you know, when you say something, it sounds definitive. So take this all with a pinch of salt, right? But, like, I'll tell you the stage things that what we've got is, like, Nemesis, a book I did a few years back, has got a great director and a great screenplay. And, you know, that's a strong possibility as one coming up next. Weirdly, I did a children's book called Kindergarten Heroes about the toddlers of superheroes. And it was a really sort of fun thing I wanted to do for the kids. And we've got the screenplay for that, and that looks quite close to happening as well. Then there's a thing being written at the moment called Starlight, and it's a sort of Buck Rogers-y kind of sci-fi thing I've done about an old space hero coming back for one last job. It's been done by the guy who did Star Wars, the Star Wars
Gary Whitta. Yeah, we had him on a couple of weeks ago.
You know, so there's a few things like that. You know, there's all these things that are just sort of pending. And the plan is there's 2 of them that look very likely towards the end of the year, you know, and probably early in the new year for the third one, I reckon. But that could all change, you know.
And what about sequels to all your films that have hit the screen? So you've got Wanted, Kick-Ass, and Kingsman now, all of which could, you know, go to sequels. What are the chances of?
Yeah, we made the mistake of tweeting a picture of me reading Kick-Ass 3, and then that's all I've had all day. It's people going, you better fucking tell him to make that.
No, the honest truth is, Kick-Ass 2 didn't make enough money. Like, Kick-Ass, again, it's awful because if it was down to me, if I was like an eccentric billionaire or something, right, and I could just make them, I'd be like, yeah, do it. But like, but you have to make a return, you know. Okay. And Kick-Ass 2 made money. Like, it cost 24 million, it made 60 million, then did well on DVD as well, you know. But it didn't make as much as Kick-Ass 1. And when something's on a downward trajectory, you're unlikely to get. You know, it's always Matthew always says he'd like to do a kind of Hit Girl spin-off first, get everybody into it, like they did with X-Men First Class, get everybody into it again, and then bring it back up for Kick-Ass 3. But I don't know, you know, it's one of those things that's just floating in the ether, you know?
The Kick-Ass spin-off, the Hit Girl one, you mentioned Gareth Evans to me when we spoke on camera last time, which I don't think I'd spoken to you about that before, but not really on camera. Yeah. But you didn't really talk about what that idea was. Can you? Or is that something that's still kind of...
It's an idea Matthew had, actually, that I think's so outrageous. Yeah. I don't know if it can actually be filmed. It's like, I think you'd have to smuggle it into the country kind of thing rather than show it in a
so outrageous, you know? Only a Welshman could direct it. I like that.
But have any of you guys seen The Raid? This amazing action movie, The Raid, out in Indonesia? Like, Matthew wanted to set it out there because I was a big fan of The Raid and I showed it to Matthew. I said, check this guy out, he does the best action I've ever seen. He's a Welshman who lives in Indonesia doing the best Asian movies you've ever seen in your life.
He directs in a Welsh football shirt. Like, as a Welsh person watching, like, when you see these images come through, you're just like, I think I love this man.
It's weird. Wales now have 3 people with jobs. Then there's you, there's him, and now Tarek. So this is amazing.
And we're all on the same level. It's good.
You know, there's going to be a Wales Yes campaign soon now after that.
That's really awkward, Mark, because he's got his 3-month review next week.
But could you tell us any more about what that story would have been, or is that top secret?
Matthew's still keen to do it, you know. Like, the idea is to get Gareth Evans, hopefully. He's very busy, though, for the next couple of years, so I don't know. But to film it out in Indonesia and get a guy like that, you know, a guy who's really good at doing those cracking Indonesian action movies. And to have Hit Girl in Indonesia would be quite interesting. You know, so like, because the stunt people are so great out there, and one of the stunt people who played Hit Girl in the first movie was from Southeast Asia. You know,
really?
But wearing the purple wig and everything, so you could get some crazy stuff going. You know,
and would it be before or after the Kick-Ass stories?
I can't say that actually, because that would give the whole game away. But it is cool. It is cool.
Yeah. Okay, so
it'll probably never happen. Don't get too excited. But if it does happen, it'll be cool. You know?
And Wanted, it's been such a long time. Do you think that one's dead in the water, getting a Wanted too? Because
Wanted's a funny one because the studio loves it because it made them a lot of cash, right? I mean, I never think about the money because the writer doesn't really think about the cash. You know, the writer just thinks about what I want to write. But the studios are very cash motivated. Things happen or don't happen because it made cash. So Wanted cost 70 million and it made 340 million.
Jesus.
And it made more money, I think, than some of the Marvel movies, and cost half as much. You know?
Right, you're buying the next round.
So the Universal are like, let's do Wanted 2. But Angelina died. Oh, for anybody who hasn't seen it, sorry. Angelina dies at the end of Wanted, and she was like the main sort of draw for the movie, you know.
Okay, right.
So they've spent the last 5 years kind of saying, so how do we bring Angelina back? And it's rubbish, you know. It's like there's no way you can bring her back and have any integrity. You know? So like,
you've got those pools that bring people.
It
back.
does seem naff, though. I don't know. The minute somebody comes back from the dead, anybody can come back from the dead.
Also,
Bobby Ewing messed that up for everyone.
I think like Wanted is. I think out of all your comics, when you see the film adaptations, I remember like being a Wanted, like reading Wanted, and then going, okay, there's going to be a film bit. It's like, how the hell are they going to make that into a film that people are going to be allowed to go and see? And then when you see it, you think, oh, okay, they've changed it so much. But I think if you're then going back to comics and you're trying to draw from the storylines that already exist, because they changed so much from the film and took so much out, and I guess it would be quite hard to go back to that
impossible.
well.
No, they had to tone it down. I mean, it was unfilmable.
Because you're a sick man.
I'm trying to be nicer now, actually. It's funny. I'm trying to do stuff that's a bit more sort of family friendly, you know.
Even that joke at the end of Kingsman.
That wasn't me. I must say, like when Matthew showed me that. Hang on, is anybody still to see Kingsman?
No, we can't give away the ending.
I can't give away the ending.
It is at the end, but it's just a joke at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a joke at the end that's quite naughty, and that was Matthew's idea for the very end of the film. And Jane Goldman and I talked him out of it. You know, we were like, it's too much. So we had to put that nice little Superman 2 bit at the end instead, but he goes back to that.
You know, this is going to make a lot of people go and see Kingsman now. Just wanting to know what that joke is.
Not just in South Korea either.
You can ask us at the bar afterwards. We'll tell you. We'll show you. Sorry.
But I love the knowing laughs.
But the last time I spoke to you about this subject was before the film came out. And it's been a huge hit. I mean, it's exceeded expectations, certainly in America.
And South Korea.
And South Korea. So what's the status now? That feels like a sequel's a no-brainer.
You would think, but the weird thing is, we didn't think it'd be as big as it has, so I haven't even thought about it, you know. And Matthew has been saying, "Oh, I've got some amazing ideas for the sequel," but he's not really like he's maybe got like a scene or something like that, you know. But but we genuinely haven't thought of anything, you know. So like I don't know, and I've booked myself up for the next year, so I think it's going to be a while before we get around to it.
Because I was saying to you, I'd like to see a film about kind of the history of the Kingsman and part of the past. But you were saying genuinely, and you said I spoke to you about this, you've forgotten, and you said that you don't really like prequels at all because there's explain
Here's
why.
the thing, too, like. I would ask the audience, can anyone name a good prequel?
Godfather 2?
Not a prequel because it moves the story forward at the same time. Well, do you know that's what Vaughn said to me as well?
Sorry, what was that? Days of Future Past?
X-Men First Class.
First Class.
Well, it's funny because I had this argument with Matthew Vaughn about a year ago because he was talking about doing a prequel for something, and we were on the phone, and I was saying to him, all prequels are rubbish because you know at the end that everybody's going to be okay. It's like Better Call Saul, you know he's going to be all right because Breaking Bad happens.
It's really annoying that, is when you watch it.
Yeah, you know he's going to be okay, and Tuco's going to be fine and all that. And I said to Matthew, name one good prequel ever. It's like Butch and Sundance, the early years and all that. Terrible. And there was a silence, and he said, X-Men First Class, you prick. And it's true that is a good prequel, actually.
Yeah. So what are you booked up with for the next year, then? Can you tell us?
Well, we're doing... I've done a project called Jupiter's Legacy with Frank Whiteley. Does guys here know Frank Whiteley? He's an amazing comic artist. And that's going to take quite a while, actually, because we're potentially talking about doing that as a movie and a television series. And I've got a sister title that would go along with it as well, you know. So, I'm going to be working on that for about the next 6 months. And what else am I doing? A secret thing. That you'll find out about in summer. How exciting is that?
Secret Thing 1, Secret Thing 2, Secret Thing 3.
But the main character in it has special needs.
Okay.
And weirdly, this is what a terrible reputation I have. I said to my agent, the next thing I'm doing, the lead character's got special needs. And he went, oh, no. And I was like, no, it's really nice.
Yeah.
But you have been criticised in the past for making comics designed to become movies, and I would say that the things you do, like the character of Hit Girl, is not something that appeals to a film studio, and Superior, which you're trying to get that movie off the ground. Yeah. That's not something that's designed to be a movie.
I have no idea how Wanted, like how did that even come about?
Yeah,
because Wanted, when you read it, you just think that's mad.
It's insane. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the thing is. But people do always say to me, you're just writing them to be films. And I always say, what is a film? Like, if you think about it, like, Boyhood's a film, Grand Budapest Hotel's a film, Transformers 3's a film. These things are all films, but they're all different. Right? So all a film is a story, and all a comic is a story. And there's no secret formula. There isn't some sort of thing. Like, some people say to me, do you just base some characters on actors so that it fools movie execs into doing the film? Yeah. It's like, they're smarter than that. It's like, so you don't. If you draw somebody like Ryan Gosling, it's not going to make Ryan Gosling think I must do that movie. So like, I don't know what it is. You just do something that I'm interested in, and then hopefully the infectious nature of story is that then somebody else is interested in it too. Yeah. And what happens is just somebody gets excited about it. Like Nemesis, like the guys at Fox just thought this looks cool and they just liked it and they wanted to make it into a film, but you can never second guess it, because who would have guessed Scott Pilgrim or 300s or Sin City? I mean, all of these things are so unique to the writers, and I think, to be honest, that's the secret. I think if you try and do something generic and try and do something that will appeal to everyone, you kind of appeal to no one in a weird way. So what I do is I try and appeal to me. Like, I just think, what would I pay £2 to read, and I just actually think about what would I enjoy and what would I like writing. And if I like it, chances are, by the law of averages, somebody else is probably going to like it too. So that's my secret, I would say, just try and appeal to yourself.
Is there anything at the moment that you're reading or watching that you're really, really liking?
Well, Better Call Saul I'm liking, but there is that weird thing where I was obsessed with Breaking Bad, like obsessed with it. It's all I talked about for ages, And like, but Better Call Saul, I feel there's that wee thing subconsciously where I know it's going to be okay, and it's the prequel problem. They have to jump forward.
But I feel like, I think they will. I think they'll do the Godfather 2 thing.
I hope so.
I think it will go forward in time as well.
It's good.
I hope it goes way into the future, like Buck Rogers kind of stuff,
Well, there's a couple of scenes in there where you see seeing like him in the future and you see him in the past, and then you see him at the time. But I know what you mean, like, because there's a couple of scenes where they're almost like cliffhangers as well, where it's just like, okay, he's got like a gun pointed to him, like, he's going to be all right.
The genius of Breaking Bad was anybody could die.
Exactly.
I mean, even halfway through it, I thought even Walter could die.
But if you introduce a bunch of really interesting characters, the fact that you know that one of them won't die, it could still be interesting if you care about the other characters.
But then you see Mike and you see Tuco and all that.
But I think it depends how much they're going to do with that.
I think when they spend time like putting Saul in like grave danger, and you're like, I'm not worried for him because I know he doesn't die. Like,
do you read a lot of other people's comics these days, or do you try and kind of stay away from that?
I probably drift more towards creator owns. Plus, I also read my friends' stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing more embarrassing than friends who work in the media whose work you're 5 years behind on. Like, it is awful. Like, people who you really like friends. I won't name names, right? Yeah. But there's a friend of mine who did a really big television series.
Who's that?
It's so awful. I'm so embarrassed.
Worth a try.
And we were meeting for breakfast, and he said, and I'd never watched his show, right? But we've been friends for about 10 years. I'd never seen one episode of his show. And we've been friends for years, and he said, I'm trying to say this without giving the guy's name away, this is going to be so hard. Yeah. And he said, do you mind if a friend of mine joins us too? And I was like, yeah, of course. And this girl came along, and she was one of the stars of the show, and I had no idea who she was.
What was the show, Mark?
What did she look like? Where was she from? Where was it set?
After about an hour, I said to her, so what is it you do yourself? Oh. And he looked at me, and he knew. And when I got back home, when I got back to Scotland, there was a FedEx pack with every DVD of the show for me to watch, and I've still never watched them.
Signed by her with like a really sad face on it.
So I do try and keep up with my pals' stuff. Anytime my pal's doing something,
apart from that one guy.
Apart from that guy.
I was at a screening of a terrific crime film called Hyena, which is out this week, I think, in the UK, and it's brilliant. If you like, it's kind of like an English Bad Lieutenant. Yeah. But the first screening I went to, the director was there, and one of the actors in it, Neil Maskell, was there. And you know Neil Maskell, he's one of the guys in Kill List, one of the hitmen. Mm-hmm. And we came outside and there was another critic there, and we all got talking, and someone mentioned Hit List and Kill List, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's one of my favourite films of all time." And someone said, "Oh yeah, Neil worked on that." He said, "Oh, what did you do? Did you write it?" Oh. And Neil was like, "No, I'm the lead actor in it." And it was just the most awkward thing, because clearly the guy hadn't seen it, and it was just a lie. Awful.
There's a really good story from, I think it was Birdman, when they were filming the scene in Birdman where he has to run through Times Square in his pants, and because they had to film it with normal people running around, there was a guy who was just came over and he was like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, we're filming this new film," and he had a giant Beetlejuice tattoo on his arm. It was really, really good. And one of the sort of production people were like, "Oh, come here a minute. You're going to like this.
You will love this."
And you were like, we took him over to Michael Keaton and was like, "Michael, do you want to see this guy?" And he's got, and Michael Keaton was like, "Oh, it's a really, really good tattoo. I really love it." And the guy's like, "Yeah, it's Beetlejuice. I'm a big fan. It's my favorite film." Michael Keaton's like, "Oh yeah, all right, wicked." Anyways, really nice to meet you. And he walks off, and the guy's like, "All right, see you in a bit." And they didn't tell him, so he just walked up going, "That's weird."
My favourite mistaken tattoo was, I met this GI ages ago, and he was really depressed. And he was a massive Harry Potter fan. It was at a comic convention. He'd shown up at a signing, and he'd had, what's the name of the old wizard? Dumbledore in Harry Potter. And he'd had Dumbledore all across his back, and this guy looked like Rambo or something, and he'd Dumbledore across his back, and I was like, "What's up with that?" And he went, "They just said he was gay last week, and they just announced it." And I was like, "You've got a gay wizard on your back?" He was like, I'm really upset about it, because he'd had it done 2 years previous. So,
yeah, he had it done 2 years ago, where Dumbledore was the ultimate badass. Now that he's gay, it's different.
No, it's the army. Don't ask, don't tell. All right, have you fellas got any more questions for Mark? Because if not, I think We've got a lot. We've got a lot in a bucket. Shall I go get the bucket?
Don't do it down.
Can you guys keep talking while I go get the bucket?
Yeah.
I'll go do it. You keep talking.
Well, this looks like a mixing bowl, actually.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to do a Darren Brown performance.
Should we take him out? Should we do a lucky dip? We'll each take one out and ask it to Mark.
Duck hunt. It's the duck hunters.
This is embarrassing because it shows I've never watched this before.
Fucking unbelievable.
I think Chris has just run off to go to the toilet. Right, so let's do this.
Bit unprofessional, Chris, having a piss mid-podcast, but
yeah, whatever. This is a good one. How do you feel about? Obviously, we haven't seen any of these, so if you don't want to answer them, then you have to let these people down.
Okay.
How do you feel about the end of the Ultimate Marvel Universe? That's from Brian.
I'm not that bothered, actually.
Are you all right? Cheers, man.
There you go. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for writing in.
No, because it was so long ago. It's a bit like your old school. My old school got knocked down. Actually, my old school got knocked down about 2 years ago. And it's the same thing. I'd be gutted if I was in it as it came down, But because I've left, I'm all right, And it's kind of like the Ultimate Marvel Universe. I just think, I got out of there. It was all right.
Yeah. Have Marvel or DC ever tried to pull you back in?
Oh yeah, I'm still really good friends with them. I mean,
is that something you want to do, or
not really? No, I mean, it's funny. Like I say, I had this motivational talk from Stan Lee 10 years ago, and he says, create your own stuff. And I've actually saw it as my mission. I've written Superman, I've written Batman, I've written Spider-Man, I've written the Avengers. So I feel I've done them, And I would actually. There's a lot of characters I love. I'd love to do a great Green Lantern story with Frank Quitely or something.
Yeah. Do you ever have that? You have those ideas? You go.
Oh yeah, I've got loads of ideas for the characters. Yeah, I mean, I think I will at some point. But I feel this new period in my life, I want to create all this stuff just now.
Okay, so
was it a pee or a poo?
Yeah, it was a quick one. It's a wee. It was a wee.
Do you think we will ever see a good Ghost Rider film?
Who asked that?
Is that anonymous?
It is unsurprisingly anonymous.
Can I actually tell a weird Ghost Rider story? When they were making Ghost Rider 1, I think, I got a phone call from one of the producers who said to me, "Could you come up with some good lines of dialogue for Ghost Rider to say?" And I was like, "Can I see the script?" And he went, "No." I swear to God, this is true.
No. But can you come up with some lines and some characters?
Yeah. And they'd shot the movie. The whole thing was done. Jesus. But I said, "How can you sub in the lines?" He said, "It's just a CGI face. You can say anything."
So we do what we want, mate. All right. Let's worry about that.
I said, "But I need to see the reactions or know the situations." Just come up with some badass stuff like "It's killing time" or something like that. I don't feel comfortable with this.
Yeah. I've got a question actually before we go into the thing. I love the fact that Freddie Prinze Jr. plays such a huge role in the Ultimates.
Yeah.
Were you given Freddie Prinze Jr. and going?
No, I sought him out. I sought him out.
Okay, good.
I'll tell you a weird story actually about that. Freddie Prinze Jr., for those who don't know, is shagging the Hulk's girlfriend in this book I did, The Ultimates, and the Hulk really hates him.
Yeah.
Like Banner, and this is the thing that makes Banner become the Hulk.
That's amazing.
For the first time, and he goes after Freddie Prinze Jr. when he's on a date with his girlfriend. I don't know why I can't even remember why I picked him. Yeah. But like, it was just a random name. I thought he just seems sort of like slightly obscure enough for it to be funny, for it being Freddie Prinze Jr. But weirdly, as it turns out, Joss Whedon was a big fan of the book.
Okay.
And Joss Whedon was going to Freddie Prinze Jr.'s wedding shortly after it. And he bought that page from Brian Hitch, the artist, and gave it to Freddie Prinze and Sarah Michelle Gellar as their present.
Yeah, wasn't it like Hulk saying like Hulk hate Freddie Prinze Jr. or Hulk smash
Freddie Prinze Jr. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and that was a wedding gift. I
got a lot of time for that. That's awesome. So this is from a loyal fan.
That's really long.
That's creepy.
No, we don't have to read out all of these.
I read it, it's fine. I heard a rumour that you had the idea of doing a story where a baby in the womb is exposed to radiation and explodes out of its mother and into a giant baby, and the Justice League has to fight it. Any progress? 3 question marks.
That's a true story.
You better answer this or he's going to shoot us.
This is true. Like, usually I don't really run stuff by people, right? But I went downstairs and said to my family, look, I've had this idea. This was about 2 years ago. I said, I've got this, it's like a girl who gets pregnant to a superhero, and she doesn't know he's a superhero, and the baby's mutating in her womb, and it's getting really big really fast. So when it's about even 4 or 5 months old, just in the gestation period, the baby just busts out, and is growing in size and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's attacking the superheroes.
Yeah.
And I remember just seeing the family's face all like, as I was telling them this, and I said, and my idea that's really good, as I said, this baby's got superpowers, it's got a dense molecular structure and everything, but the way to defeat it is the softest part of a baby is the fontanelle on the top of the head. And I thought, if one of the Superman guys grabs a jet and fires it down the fontanelle and the baby...
Your wife just grabbed your baby at a time like away from you and be like, you're not looking after it by yourself anymore.
How's that going?
This is the moment we find out Mark Millar's going to hell.
And I came downstairs because I was actually quite proud of it, and I was like, guess what? And I saw I lost... when you can feel the energy leaving a room kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like worst Christmas day ever.
I think you should read this one out, because it's actually probably the best question we're getting.
Oh. To everyone on stage, would you like a drink?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. That's from Mark.
From Mark? Oh, is this from me?
No, it's not. It's from someone called Mark.
All right.
Unless you wrote that and didn't remember. Where's Mark?
Are these drinks
Hi,
drugs?
Mark, yeah.
Are they drugs by any chance?
Yeah, the Odell Pale Ale. Sorry, Mark, you can't go to that bar for it. You have to go to the back
safely
one.
home.
What do you want?
Could I have the pretend Guinness that they have in here?
An Odell Pale Ale, please. Thank you. It looks like that.
I'll have the lager that they do. And we will we'll get you one after. Thank you, Mark. Great question.
Very much.
Great question. Best question of the night.
I'll tell you what, he's put you all to shame. Put you all to shame.
I've got a question saying, hello.
Getting rowdy.
Hello and Duck Hunt. Were you
Duck
happy
Hunt.
with Nicolas Cage's casting in Kick-Ass?
Was what?
Were you happy with Nicolas Cage's casting in Kick-Ass?
Oh, amazing. You know what's funny? Like, the casting process is fascinating because I remember hearing years ago that Steve McQueen was the original choice to play the Bill Money character in Unforgiven.
Really?
The part was written for Steve McQueen, and yet now you can't imagine anyone other than Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And Big Daddy's like that too. We talked about Sylvester Stallone. That was the original one around.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't speak to him, but that was one of the names being floated about. And you have to have somebody within a certain budget. There's all these kind of things you don't think about when you're doing comics, but some people cost a lot of money, So some of the guys we talked about, Mark Wahlberg wanted too much money. We asked Mark Wahlberg, and there was Matthew McConaughey was talked about at one time. There was actually a meeting with Matthew McConaughey.
Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah. And Matthew McConaughey, which would have been really weird as well. Yeah. But I can't imagine anybody now other than Nick Cage. And there's two things that sold us on Nick Cage as soon as I heard them. Nick Cage I actually think he's a genius, right? Like, watching him film, every take he does something different. He does something brilliant and different every take. So when you're sitting in the edit room, you've got so many things to play with.
Really?
And everything.
Okay,
like Matthew was like, watch this, and Matthew was showing me all this amazing stuff he'd done.
Yeah.
And like, he came up with two ideas when he was building the character, when he was out for dinner the night before it, and he said, I want to do it in the voice of Adam West. which was like, okay, that sounded insane, and yet was brilliant. You know, the minute the mask goes on, he's doing the voice of Adam West, but when the mask comes off, he's got this really quiet voice, you know. And his other thing that was fantastic was his disguise as a superhero is that he has a moustache in his secret identity, but he has a slightly larger moustache. And I was like, this guy's a genius. So I can't imagine anyone except him playing.
And what was he like off screen? Because he's
so
such
nice.
he's a mystery.
I loved him. I really got on well with him, actually. It was funny because he was there first day of shooting, and he was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were in a sewage factory. Like, you know the scene where Mindy's getting shot by her dad in the bulletproof vest and everything? That was all shot in this gravel at a sewage factory, and it was disgusting. I mean, like, it was only one day of filming there. It was a Saturday, but from 6 in the morning until 7 at night, we were in a sewage factory, and the smell, it was like an alien world, right? And like, I could smell it off my clothes for weeks. It was like human waste. It was disgusting.
Film somewhere else.
Yeah.
just film somewhere else.
Factory.
We've got a massive budget.
And Nick Cage was there first day, and despite all the sewage and all that, it seemed really glamorous and everything. And it was. He came up and started chatting because he's a big comic guy, and we sort of bonded on that. And
Ghost Rider.
Yeah, but he's always wanted to. He wanted to play Superman, Ghost Rider. He got to play Big Daddy, and he was just so likable. And you always you want a story like some guy's an asshole, don't you? You know, you want one of those stories, and he's the opposite. He's so nice, you know, like. And Angelina Jolie was lovely on Wanted and everything as well. Jim Carrey, you know, it's like that. I wasn't on set at the same time as Carrey. He was only there for 5 days, but like he was an asshole after.
I know he said lots of nice things about the guns in the movie, didn't he? That went well.
So, Mark, did growing up in a place like Coatbridge influence the way you look at characters and themes within your work? From Paul from Coatbridge.
From Coatbridge. Whereabouts in Coatbridge are you from? Oh, that's where I'm from. What street are you from?
What number?
The Crescent, but you're handy for the Laron's pub? Yeah. Excellent. I was there 2 weeks ago for a christening. I thought I knew your face. You know, so. But like, Coatbridge, I would say it's integral, and it sounds ridiculous, but every single one of my things I've ever written, I can trace back to something in Coatbridge, because we draw on our childhood all the time, you know. So for me, superheroes really weren't something that happened in America almost. It was something that happened growing up, and I relate it all to Scotland for me, you know. So like, but I think your writing kind of has an accent a little bit too, and the thing that makes my stuff different from a guy in London or a guy in New York or whatever is that I come from Coatbridge. So I think it's great, and I think coming from a place that isn't filled with writers, I think, is your greatest advantage, because you've got no competition. Well, all the screenwriters I know are all bald guys with glasses who live in LA, you know, and they all have the same life experiences, they're into the same TV shows and everything, where we come from a place where everybody's a little bit different, a bit more interesting, you know. I mean that as a compliment.
This kind of follows on from that. I don't know if yours does as well, but I've got two here. Someone who's said, why don't you base more characters in Glasgow? And Dean McMillan tweeted us and said, will Mark write something set in Scotland?
So did Jamie Coburn as well. Will you ever write a book
that's all
based
that's in here, really.
Yeah.
So story set in Scotland.
I actually set an issue of Fantastic Four in Scotland. I did a 2-part Fantastic Four story that was set in Scotland, and nobody was into it, weirdly, you know. Like, all the Americans had no point of reference. Like, there's something interesting about New York that if you set a story in New York, everybody knows the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building and all that. But if you say, for example, in your story, oh yeah, you know, like West Nile Street kind of thing, it's like nobody knows what you're talking about. And I sort of get it. I get the cultural shorthand of people know what Harlem is and people know what Brooklyn is, and they get it. They know what upstate means and all that in a way that they don't get Loch Lomond, you know. And I wish it was different.
Oddly.
Think about this. I'd love to put Hawkeye in the Orndale Centre.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a supervillain who lives in Hamilton, but his nemesis is Batman, who's in Gotham City. So he's like the king. Like, Batman can't get him because he's in Hamilton. You know.
This is a good question, because like Old Logan is one of my favorite like comic series, and this is from Fro, who says, who would win in a battle between Old Logan and Superman?
Superman.
Superman, isn't he?
I'd say Superman. He's just a bit muscly and he's got claws, you know. Superman could go into space and vaporise. And he's old. Although he could reform himself, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, all the time. Just be a really boring fight to watch.
But would adamantium cut through the dense molecular structure? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
You're stranded on a desert island.
Yeah.
And you will be there indefinitely.
Okay.
Your one companion...
Is this going to happen?
Yeah. After this,
your one companion / lover is a mermaid.
Right.
Do you choose top half or bottom half as fish? That's from Beebs and James.
Do you know what? I've actually thought about this, right? I've genuinely thought about this before. And I actually think human bottom half would freak me out too much, like, because I would feel it's not a human being, whereas I feel as if the human top half, like, I could put a towel over the bottom half kind of thing and we could still chat and all that and it would seem like a human. I would feel I'm taking advantage of an animal. Yeah. If it's a fish,
have you ever done that before?
If it's a fish top half though, you know, but the fish might have no computation, you know, what's going on here, you know?
We know what your luxury item is, a towel. Okay, so
but that's the equivalent of the Ann Summers catalogue, it's just a towel across the bottom half.
Yeah. So be honest, are there any parts of films adapted from your works that you haven't particularly enjoyed? And which?
Well, do you know what? I'm kind of to blame myself because as a producer, you get control. It's not like working at another company, you know, but as a producer, you can stop it happening. You can say, I don't want to do the project at all. You can kill it. But sometimes greed takes the better of you, you know, and you'll go along with something. Yeah. But generally, I'm happy with it. You know, I think, like, the only thing that's a bit weird, I guess, is the looms and Wanted. But I even like that. Like, people said to me, did you hate the fact that they made jumpers as well as being assassins and things? Yeah. But I kind of like the madness of it. Like, Timur explained it to me. Like, I can't speak Russian. Timur at the time could barely speak English. And we went for dinner in 2006. And he explained the whole Loom of Fate thing to me. And neither of us could understand each other. But it sounded good. You know, I was like, yeah, like, go for it.
Oh my Lord.
Has there ever been something that, this is my question, but has there ever been something where initially when a director or a writer or like a head producer's come to you and gone, we want to do this, and you've sort of resisted, but actually it's turned out really, really well?
Yeah, the jetpack in Kick-Ass.
Okay.
Yeah, because like the whole point of Kick-Ass is that there's no web shooters and there's no adamantium claws and all that. Like, it's only things that happen in real life. And for some reason I know a lot about jetpacks, right? And you can only... And I said to Matthew, do you realise you can only go up in a jetpack? You can't really sort of go forward in it. You can only go up, and you can only go up to 150 feet, so you'd never get to the top of that building. And Matthew
was like, why'd you know so much? Fuck's sake.
And he's
already done it.
And he said to me, like, just trust me on this one. He said, this is Luke blowing up the Death Star at the end. You're going to feel good. And he said, and if you want to be real, he said, the Death Star exploding should have been silent, because it's in the vacuum of space. Yeah. But it's exciting because you hear the sound. He said, you've got to have a bit of artistic license. And I said, but you're going to lose the audience. And he says, look, they've been with him for an hour and a half. Yeah. They're going to buy him that little bit because it makes you feel great. And I was like, okay, I'll trust you. And he said, if you don't like it and it doesn't play with the audience, I'll take it out. And I was like, okay, that's fair enough. And then he said to me later, I was lying. I was never going to take it out. But I did watch it with test audiences, and they were going nuts. And with the Elvis music and everything.
Well, it's built up really nicely. And even when he sticks it on, he's still a little bit shit with it as well. Yeah. So I think it fits with the character where he's like, yes, this is going to be amazing. It'd be like what we would be like if we put a jetpack on. You'd be like,
oh, speak for yourself. I know a lot about them. You know, so. I would actually love a jetpack.
Anyone got
Let's
one?
move on. You know.
Are there any comics or films that you'd like to take a shot at, or that you feel you could do better?
Oh, that's a horrible question. Because honestly, I don't know how many headlines will come out of tonight, but there is always, somebody will always warp what you've said into something off. I'll give you a perfect example, right? Like, oh, thank you very much, thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers. Is anybody else having one? Is it just us?
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah, the perfect example is, I do consultancy work at Fox, and like a lot of the stuff that I do is behind the scenes, you know, because I talk to the execs more than the creatives generally, and we sort of work out plans and things. And like I remember when I first got the job, I obviously knew what characters were going to be in X-Men Days of Future Past, and I knew that Kitty Pryde was going to be in it, but I couldn't tell anyone because it's a gigantic spoiler, you know. And like I got interviewed by a magazine, and they said to me, is Kitty Pryde going to be in the new X-Men film? And I was like, I can't tell you that, you know. And they said, okay, will X-Men fans be disappointed by the lack of Kitty Pryde in the film? And I was like, all I can say is, I think if you like the X-Men, you're going to enjoy this film. And the headline, genuinely a double-page spread in a magazine, was, Millar says, Kitty Pryde fans will not be disappointed in the X-Men. So it's incredible, you know. So to get back to the original thing, yeah, it's so hard. How can I say this without slagging someone else?
Exactly,
you know?
But it must be hard, like, because, I mean, you're on Twitter all the time. Like, is that something that's in your head where You have to. Have you ever been taken on side by someone where someone's gone, Mark, be quiet?
Well, maybe, I mean, you're doing all creator-owned characters now.
Yeah.
Is that it in the future, or is there a character you'd like to go back to, one you haven't tackled that you feel like you've got a story for?
Oh yeah, I mean, all of them. Honestly, like, I really love this stuff. Like,
narrow it down a bit, Mark. give me something.
But DC stuff, especially, like some friends at DC, Marvel, I'm in touch with all the time. You know, Marvel said, do you fancy coming back? Every few months, I'll get a little email from Marvel. But DC have asked if I want to do some Superman or some Green Lantern, Batman. I'd really enjoy doing. With the right guy, I'd love to do something like Batman with John Romita Jr. Or Superman with Brian Hitch, maybe, or Green Lantern with Frank Quitely. Frank and I have talked about it a little bit. Brendan McCarthy doing The Flash. You know, there's all these guys I would love to do something with. You know, it's just the time. I mean, I get up so early, right? The babies, I've got an 11-month-old.
I've got to watch 4 Superman films.
I've got to watch a Superman
every
film.
day.
And Supergirl.
So I'm knackered by 8 o'clock because I've been up since 5:30 or whatever. So 8 o'clock I start working. I work till about 4 or 5. Then I do my phone calls because America, like Los Angeles, wakes up about 4ish, and I do phone calls till about maybe 6:30 or 7 o'clock or something, you know. And I only get half as much done as I want to get done.
And you got a tweet.
I've got a tweet, you know. Check out porn, you know.
And that's lunch.
I've got one from an anonymous saying, what's your favourite 2000 AD strip?
Best ever. Probably you know what I love? Like Time Twisters. I used to love like Future Shocks and Time Twisters. Like I love the soundbite of it, you know, just something that's 3 pages long. It was a great skill for people who grew up with 2000 AD. You learned how to write a story in 3 pages, which is the best skill a writer can get. Like, because now when you start writing something, they throw you in at the deep end and you're doing a 10-issue story or something. But a 3-page story, you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Introduce your characters. It was the best apprenticeship. And people used to have to do these wee short stories for 2 years, even Alan Moore, before they were allowed to do the regular stuff. And I would love to see some kind of equivalent at Marvel and DC. It's a great training ground.
Have you seen the 2000 AD documentary Future Shock?
No,
that's been made. It's very good.
Is it good?
Yeah. I caught it at South by Southwest, and some great stories from those guys.
We were just talking about like restrictions and things like that, because obviously that's a good kind of restriction. And we were talking, because like Chris was reading Civil War for the first time on the way up, and we were talking about, do you think you work better where you're left to just go off and go mad and you can do whatever you want, or do you sort of quite like working within the restrictions of something like the Marvel Universe as well?
Do you know, I've started to impose restrictions on myself a little bit because it can be too easy. I mean, like I say, the Fontanelle attack on the baby, right? Like, to me, that was genius, right? I was like, this is going to be amazing. You know? And
you're like smoking a big cigar on the front. You did it again, Millar.
Take the rest of the day off. And sometimes it is quite good to self-edit, you know, and I think that's what I've started doing a little bit. You don't want to be tame, because I think it's nice to cut loose as well. So I think a combination of both is good, you know, but as a little exercise, I wrote Starlight, for example, without a single swear word. Like, there's no swear word. And the opening line originally was, I feel like an asshole, right? And I changed it to, I feel like an idiot. When I got it back, I thought, I'm going to try and do a whole book without any swearing, like nothing at all. And it was fine. It worked as well. You know, Superman Red Sun had no swearing and worked well as a Superman story, you know. So, I don't know, Chrononauts has the new book. It's out in a couple of weeks' time. It's got very, very, very small amounts of sort of cursing and things. And I thought, it's a nice discipline to impose on yourself and then cut loose with something maybe after it, you know. So I think you can fall into a groove too easily as a writer, and just, you know, like, it's too easy just to have a fight that's just like, fuck you, you know, because that's the way people talk in real life, isn't it, when they're fighting? So as a writer, it's more interesting and more challenging to try and do it without making it too naturalistic.
Great. So now our podcast is explicit. That's official.
It's
got the explicit layer.
You're crazy. In fairness, if we came back from Glasgow without an explicit podcast, we probably haven't done Glasgow properly.
As we head into the third hour.
Are people all right for us to keep going? We've got more questions in here. You bored yet?
Yeah. Okay. So, maybe a quick one here. Any plans to revisit the world of Old Man Logan?
No, but there is always that rumour. There's a rumour that talk, you know, I'm not talking out of school here, that they've said it's a possibility as a potential Wolverine movie, you know, for Hugh Jackman.
It seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
If he won't play the character until he dies, he's going to get older at some point.
But in terms of comics, no, I've no plans at all. You
know. I think there's going to be a lot of these. Wonder Woman v King Kong, who would win?
Well, King Kong is an eye for the ladies. When you think about it,
maybe they'll fall in love.
Yeah, I think they would fall in love. Okay. It'd be like Fairy,
This one is really weird, and it's written on a scrap of paper, which is not one of our bits of paper. So it's just a bit of yellow with a thing. And on the back it's got E661-3434, Carluccio's, West Nile Street. Is that where the treasure's buried? What is that?
That's a guy advertising his restaurant in here.
Oh, really? All right, there we are.
You're not got that through before you read it out,
and you played into it, my friend.
Yeah, he's paying me.
This is from Jordan. Any future plans to work with Frankie Boyle?
Well, do you know, I was at a dinner party with Frankie a couple of weeks back, and he's a big comic guy who loves comics, and he's always...
Of course, and he was
talking
in
about
Clint.
good
He wrote
stuff.
a script for Clint, which is your magazine.
Well, I run this magazine from 2010 to 2013 or something, and I loved the idea of getting guys who loved comics, who hadn't worked in comics, like Frankie Boyle, Jonathan Ross, Jimmy Carr, and all that. You were never going to really get them right in the X-Men or something, But I wanted to see what they could do, and Frankie did this amazing thing called Rex Royd. Did anybody read Frankie's strip, Rex Royd?
Did.
It's absolutely bonkers, and I'm trying to find some bit of I can say that's acceptable in any way, but check it out if you get a chance. Illegally download it, you can probably see it online.
Yeah, I mean, I worked on Clint a little bit. Why did you call it Clint, Mark?
Well, the reason
some people know.
There's a history in comics of picking boys or girls' names for the titles of your books. And so in the past there was Mandy and Tracy and all that kind of stuff.
I worked on a magazine called Jack.
Jackie,
yep.
and there was Buster and everything. Yeah. But the real that was what I said to relatives when they asked. But the real reason is there was two words that was always banned in comics up until the 80s.
Yeah, can we
and
not?
One word was I won't say the word, but one word is Flick and the other one is Clint because they look rude when the letters run together in comics.
What do they look like?
And I just thought that was like that was a message out there. I was like, okay, we can do anything in this.
Yeah,
book.
so you'd go.
We got cancelled.
You got going to direct Smith though, and you'd see CL. Whatever.
Well, the worst thing is we always get stacked next to the pornos. That was the thing that was always really embarrassing. And you would see people shuffling.
Yeah, but you requested that.
I do regret it.
So you get the footfall.
This is a good one from someone who wrote the question and then just went mad scribbling all over it.
Is everyone okay? We're
going to ask him, mate. It's okay.
That's amazing.
If it was up to you, who would you cast in the lead roles in the Nemesis film?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, the thing is, this is always quite tricky because whoever then does get cast is really sad because somebody will send them this link,
Yeah.
Which you told me the other day, and yet I still tried to make you pick Starlight characters, and we went through about 6 of them, and that could get you in trouble one day.
I know who they're talking about for Starlight. I know who it's probably going to be.
You may as well tell us, because in this room we won't tell anyone.
Would you keep it between yourselves? Yeah. No, I thought my dream guy for Nemesis is Michael Fassbender, who'd be amazing. Because Nemesis is evil Batman, and nobody reeks of evil Batman more than Michael Fassbender.
Jobs.
He'd be amazing.
Steve Jobs is evil Batman. Billionaire evil Batman.
And the cop we talked about originally a couple of years back, there was talk of Liam Neeson. There's actually Liam Neeson on video being asked by Joe Carnahan if he wants to play the part.
Really?
And he'd not read the script. He went, yeah, it sounds all right.
I feel like there's other roles in Nemesis that Liam Neeson could play, though, that aren't Nemesis. Like I think.
The wife?
Exactly, yeah.
Versatile.
He's got a lovely...
He's a good actor.
He's got a lovely accent.
Great actor. So, is there any characters that you detest in comics, past or present? If so, why? Heart.
A little heart.
Heart.
Who's Hart?
It's just, it's like, even though it's a negative question, there's still a lot of love in
I don't know what it says about the people who come to our podcast or listen to our podcast, but a lot of these are written in just block caps. Like, just anger.
They're shouting.
They're shouting at you, Mark.
I think, I don't detest them, but a very hard character to write was Swamp Thing. Are you guys familiar with Swamp Thing? And it was a genius book, which made it even harder. Like, Alan Moore had written it, Rick Veitch wrote it. I mean, it was an incredible run. But the character himself was a vegetable who talked, right? I mean, he was a plant who had a voice. And somehow brilliant writers, Len Wein and all these guys going back 30 years had made it work, and then it landed in my lap. So I had this talking vegetable who had a history of brilliant writers somehow making it win awards. And that was the hardest gig I've ever had in my life, you know. So it was. He lived in the swamps. He had no friends. He was a talking vegetable, and you had to try and get a story out of it. I wrote it for 3 years. It was really hard.
Do you have that in your mind when you're going on to different comics and you're offered a hero or something?
Yeah.
Do you have it in your mind going, well, so and so did that
Who
so
came
well?
before you?
I
Something
think
such like that character.
Definitely. Yeah. You want to follow X-Men 3.
Yeah.
You don't want to follow. You don't want to follow Days of Future Past. And it's true. I mean, like, you don't want to come on stage after somebody who's brilliant. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? You want something to. It's like property developers going into a slum area, you know. You want to go into something nobody likes. It's really hard to follow somebody great. Yeah, exactly.
But with something like Swamp Thing, like you said, it's so hard. Like, it must have been so hard going from Alan Moore to and then going. No, not from you.
It was hard for the readers.
But for you, like, what
I was 22 or 23.
Okay, what makes you say though? I guess.
I needed
you wanted a job.
Yeah. I wanted a job, honestly. Yeah. I mean, my 20s, I genuinely spent as much time writing proposals as I did writing. You know, it was until I was about 30. By the time I was about 29 or 30, I always had my head just above the water, but I was writing proposals all the time, and my books were always on the verge of cancellation. I always remember DC's cancellation point at the time was 17,500, right? And my books were always like 100 copies over it, right? It was so weird. And I used to phone up my editor every month and say, "Are we cancelled yet?" And if we were cancelled, I had no cash, you know, and I kept having children, and I had to somehow feed them and everything.
How many have you got?
Every month.
Yeah. Your agent's like, mate, you need to stop
having kids. I don't even know how many kids. Every time I have sex, there's a child. That's all I know.
How many children you got? 2?
That's it.
Okay, I like this question a lot. Where is your favourite place to kick back and relax? ? And in case you can't think of anything, they've said, i.e. pub, study, or surfboarding, ! So
3 exclamation marks.
To give you some inspiration.
You go surfing? I imagine you love the surf.
I'm a big surfer. A place to relax? I think... What do I do? I go to the pub too much. Like, I always kind of think I don't
You
drink
just told me earlier you go for the odd swim.
I go for a swim every morning. I swim 2 miles a week now. 2 miles a week, which sounds impressive, but it's only 20 lengths a day. Yeah. You know, like that's not that good. But
when you
2 miles,
he has to watch 5 Superman
2 miles a
films.
week. But my nephew swims 4 miles a day. You know, which is nuts. So 2 miles a week sounds crap. But I do a little swim at the end of the day. You know, so I guess that's my chill out. I swim in this place. It's all old people. It's really weird. It's the Western Baths out in the West End. Western Baths, the membership is like a gym for old people. So everybody's in their 80s and 90s. But it's
weird. Like a cocoon.
The minute they hit the water, though, it's like sea animals. You know, they hobble to the side of the pool. They hit the water and like
come alive,
and they're all laughing.
It is like a cocoon.
It's just like a cocoon. Courtney Cox running around.
Why doesn't Superman just chuck every bad guy into the sun?
Chuck.
Man, when I go back to DC, that is my 1-page story I'm doing.
On a similar note, are there any storylines or story arcs that you wish you had written but didn't?
That I wish I had written? Oh,
yeah.
Just the stuff I love, like anything by Frank Miller, Alan Moore, kind of like Dark Knight Returns is my favourite comic ever. Batman Year One, amazing. I'd say Batman Year One. I would go for that. Okay. You know, although I don't know, there's actually a story I love from when I was a kid. This is my new favourite comic. I love finding things that are terrible taste that were well intentioned. You know, something that kind of like they meant it to be a dramatic story, but when you look at it now as an adult, this is wrong. Like there's a Superman story from when I was about 7. Where Lex Luthor can't defeat the adult Superman, so he creates a ray that turns Superman, the Flash, and Batman into infants, and then he beats the shit out of them. And the cover, even honestly,
what's the weak point?
I'm going to put this up on Twitter tomorrow so you can see it. But the cover is the infant, and they're still wearing their costumes, which makes it really weird looking. The infant Flash lying dead, the infant Batman lying dead, and Luthor, and he's got a power glove just to make it even worse. This glove that's glowing, punching the infant Superman in the face. And screaming, you know?
He's got beer and like cigarette. This is fucking wicked.
Nintendo power glove.
And I wish I'd thought of that.
Have we got any more?
Killing babies.
We've got one more.
Because I'm slightly worried about that scrunched up.
Who's folded that?
I think Mark should.
Let's have a look at this.
Who scrunched one up and put it in?
It just says, help me.
I'm coming for you.
Oh, this is timely, actually.
Yeah.
This is almost like this has been planted.
It hasn't.
Would you ever consider returning to a previous project such as Nemesis, Superior, Super Crooks, or American Jesus? Now, American Jesus is a project that I wrote over 10 years ago, and the idea was the return of Jesus in the present day, like a comic where it's a kid who finds out, instead of being bitten by a spider or something, that he's the returned Jesus Christ. So it's like him in the modern world trying to get by. And I called it Ultimate Jesus, was the thing I had in my mind.
Can I butt in? Because I spoke to someone earlier about this tonight, and they said they heard you talk about it, I spoke to you about it, and you claimed that you thought the Bible was an incomplete trilogy.
Yes.
And Mark Millar was the man to complete the trilogy. The ego on this guy. You couldn't make it up, but he does.
But it's like the Old Testament. You know, it's a trilogy, of course. There's the Old Testament, there's the New Testament, and then there's the final testament. And I saw American Jesus as being that. So I've written one book of it already. It's been out, and I started book 2 today, weirdly. You know, and I'm going to finish it all up this summer. But my idea was that if you think about it in terms of the Star Wars trilogy, right? The Old Testament is Star Wars, the New Testament is Empire Strikes Back. And it even ends with a kind of cliffhanger, you know, because Jesus has been killed off and all that, you know. And then it's like Han Solo in the carbonite and everything. And then what you have then is him coming back. It's like Han Solo out the carbonite, you know. So the idea is this completes it. The circle is complete, you know. So.
I wanted to ask, actually, about Super Crooks, though, because Nacho Vigalondo, who's an amazing director, if people haven't seen the movie Time Crimes, you fell in love with that film, I fell in love with that film. And it turned out you liked his work, he liked your work. How did you meet Nacho, and what's happening with that film that he was going to...
Is anybody in here familiar with Nacho Vigalondo, the Spanish filmmaker? Yeah. He's a genius, right? I urge you to illegally download his films as well. He's fantastic, and he's a great pal of mine as well. And do you know how I met him? This is really weird. In 2008... they were having a charity auction where you got to have lunch with me, right? Which sounds like the crappiest prize, you know. It's like a date gone wrong, you know. And like Nacho paid like $1,000 or something like this, and had lunch. And I didn't know who he was, and I had no idea he was a huge deal in Spain. And he couldn't speak English. As recently as 2008, he couldn't speak almost a word of English.
He still can't that one.
I can barely speak English. So the two of us met for lunch.
Just two of you?
Just the two of us, no translator. And it was the most painful, awkward lunch.
I didn't know that.
Oh, it was terrible. And he was trying to talk in English, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. He had no idea what I was saying. It was horrible. And then we became email friends after that, because he was Google Translate and all this kind of stuff, you know. And we ended up becoming really good friends, and we said we'd do a movie together. We decided we've got a supervillain movie that we're going to set in Tenerife. And I always thought it was such an obvious idea. I had this thought where I thought, why do supervillains rob banks in Gotham City or Metropolis?
Yeah.
Because Superman and all that are really good, right? And they've got a history of putting guys in prison, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, why don't a bunch of supervillains just go somewhere in Europe where there's no superheroes, you know?
Yeah.
In Tenerife, there's a lot of dodgy cash and all that, and just go out and do a job where you're just up against fat Spanish cops, you know?
Yeah.
So Nacho was like, yeah, let's do this, and Nacho's going to direct it. But we wrote a screenplay, it's floating around in there, we'll see what happens. That's not the worst charity lunch I've had, by the way. The worst charity lunch I've ever had, genuinely, was this guy had paid $2,000 for lunch, right? And I was like, this guy must be really into my stuff. This was back in about 2007.
When he pays $2,000 for lunch, do you have to pick up the check, or is he?
Yes, I had to pick up lunch, right? And I met this guy, like, it was a charity auction at the Chicago Comic Con, and like, you know, the night before he'd paid $2,000 and everything, and he showed up and he had two young boys with him who were about 9.
One was for you. One was for him.
That's 4 drinks in.
Let's pick up the check.
And I said to the guy, where do we go for lunch? He went, oh, I'm not going. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, it's just you and the boys. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, can I take you aside for a moment? He says, I've started going out with their mum. And he said, they're always around.
We need a babysitter.
Yeah, he said, could you take them off my hands for a couple hours, you know? And I was like, seriously? And I said, where will I take them? And he said, there's a TGI Fridays down there, they like that, you know?
He's like, I don't care, mate, I'm off with this woman.
And I said, at the end, have they read my stuff? I said, I don't think so, they've never read anything you've done, you know? So I took these 2 children away for 2 hours. What? While this guy got off with their mum, you know? And like...
Amazing.
And it was all for charity, so it's okay, you know. So.
I love the fact this guy's
you're like this generation Timmy Savile, aren't you?
That guy loved it. It was fucking Friday.
Yeah. I love the fact that he's sitting in this charity auction just going, how am I going to... No one's watching these kids tomorrow. Next up, lunch with Mark Millar. Yes.
That's absolutely true.
That's absolutely mad. What was it?
It was the most awkward lunch. I mean... there was these two wee boys, and they were silent.
And you kept telling them about punching a kid in the head.
I was trying to think.
I could kill you at the jet when you were a child. You are a child.
I was like, "Are you guys into Spider-Man?" They were like, "Not really." Yeah. You know, it was just
little boy's not into Spider-Man or anything. Nah, into Bergman.
So we're into our mum, and she's not here.
We don't like that, man.
I feel like this is a weird place to end the podcast.
And yet somehow perfect.
It's coming to a natural conclusion.
Yeah.
So, Mark, have you got anything you want to plug?
Let me see. There's Chrononauts is out in 3 weeks' time. Jupiter Circle's out in about 9 weeks' time. You'll forget all this. You're drinking. Why am I even telling you? You know.
But we're recording it.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Anybody who's recording it, check it out. I think that's it. Drive carefully. You know, home tonight. You know.
No, don't drive.
No, don't drive at all. Actually.
Hello, Glasgow.
You've been drinking, but drive carefully.
Or drive so much faster than the police. Drive so much faster.
Drive fast, get home quicker.
Yeah.
I'll do this on behalf of Mark Millar. If you want to see a movie, see Kingsman this weekend. But that's not playing as part of the Glasgow Film Festival. So if you want to see a movie, Glasgow Fright Fest is happening the whole weekend. Catch some horror films there. Or see me at Nirvana. I'm going to be at Dazed and Confused in a roller derby rink.
Here?
I'm not sure how that's going to go on my birthday. Beer and roller skates, that's not going to work. And the King of Kong screening, which we mentioned earlier, and the Goonies is also screening that day. So,
hang on, when did the Goonies become a good film?
I'm with you on this.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on this. It's not. It's not. The Monster Squad. If you want to see a good movie from that time, that place with similar characters but better done, it's the Monster Squad.
Goonies isn't that great. On that note.
Thanks for coming.
I want to say a couple of thank yous though. Thank you to the festival for inviting us up. That's Kristen and Joe who've helped us out and they've been amazing. And also Premier PR, Elizabeth and Matty have helped us out enormously. So thank you guys. And also, thanks everyone that's watching and listening. Mark, many thanks for being an amazing guest.
I was just wandering by. I don't think I was actually invited.
Could have been anyone.
I want to thank Glasgow for being so blooming awesome. And we'll see you all at the bar.
Yeah. Glasgow, get him as he tries to leave.